My grandfather's funeral was where the lawyer read his will, leaving 80% of his estate to me, his most overlooked granddaughter instead of my mother or any of my aunts who had been hoping for years. The entire funeral home fell silent, and everyone's eyes cut into me like knives. My mother's face turned a shade of red I'd never seen before, while my 3 aunts exchanged glances that could only be described as murderous. Uncle Robert cleared his throat awkwardly, the sound echoing through the silent room. There must be some mistake, my Aunt Vivian finally spoke, her voice trembling with barely contained rage. Dad wouldn't do this. He wouldn't betray his own daughters. The lawyer, a stern-looking woman in her 60s with silver-rimmed glasses, adjusted her papers. Here's no mistake, Mrs. Crawford. Mr. Thornhill was of sound mind when he signed this will 3 months ago. It clearly states that 80% of his assets, including the family estate and his controlling shares in Thornhill Ingersize, are to go to his granddaughter, Emma. I felt like I might throw up. I'd always been close to Hasos, visiting him weekly when everyone else was too busy, but this was never discussed. The inheritance was worth millions, and I was just a 24-year-old graphic designer barely making rent in my crappy apartment. This is outrageous, my mother hissed. Not even looking at me, Emma must have manipulated him when he was vulnerable. Dad was declining in his final months. He was not, I snapped before I could stop myself. He was sharp as ever until the pneumonia. We discussed politics and the stock market the week before he was hospitalized. The room temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. My cousin Tempik, always the peacemaker, touched my arm gently. Emma, maybe we should all take some time to process this before what? My Aunt Patricia cut in, standing up. I don't think so. She turned to the lawyer. We'll be contesting this will. Here is no way Dad would have done this unless he was being manipulated or wasn't in his right mind. My cheeks burned. I'd spent more time with Heiss in the last 5 years than all of them combined. While they were busy with their lavish vacations and country club memberships, I was reading to him, taking him to doctor appointments, and listening to his stories about the old days, but saying that now would only make things worse. The lawyer remained unfazed. You are welcome to contest, of course. However, I should inform you that Mr. Thornhill anticipated this reaction. He left a video statement explaining his decision, which will be presented should the will be challenged, that silenced everyone momentarily. Hass had always been 3 steps ahead. After the meeting, I tried to approach my mother in the hallway. Mom, I had no idea about any of this. I am as shocked as you are. She raised her hand to stop me. Not now, Emma. Not here. Her eyes, so similar to mine, were cold and distant. I don't know what you did to convince my father that you deserve everything we've worked for, but I hope it was worth it. You just destroyed this family. She walked away, joining my aunts who were huddled together, whispering. I stood there completely alone at my grandfather's funeral, now apparently the villain in my own family story. My cousin Tyler approached, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. Well, little Emma, who would have thought? He glanced around before leaning closer. You should be careful. A lot of money makes people do desperate things. Is that a threat? I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. He chuckled, adjusting his designer tie. Just friendly advice from your concerned cousin. Hassels always did have a soft spot for you, didn't he? Flintsy, you wonder why? As I drove home alone, my phone exploded with messages from family members, some concerned, most accusatory. I turned it off and tried to focus on the road through my tears. What had a husband thinking? And why hadn't he warned me? Back in my apartment, I found a small package that had been delivered while I was at the funeral. The return address was from my grandfather's estate. Inside was an old leather-bound book and a handwritten note. Emma, by the time you read this, all hell will have broken loose. I'm sorry to put this burden on you, but you were the only one I could trust. This journal contains the truth. The real inheritance isn't the money. It's what you'll do with the truth. Be careful who you trust. Not everything in our family is as it seems. I stared at the journal, my hand shaking. What truth? What had my beloved grandfather gotten me into? The next morning, my cousin Ek called me in tears. Emma, you need to come over to Ice's house. Your house now. It's bad. I arrived to find moving trucks in the driveway. My mother and aunts were systematically emptying the mansion of artwork, antiques, and family heirlooms. What the hell is going on? I demanded, blocking the entrance as 2 men carried out Ricey's antique desk. And Vivian barely glanced at me. We're taking what's rightfully ours before you sell it all to strangers. That's literally theft, I said, pulling out my phone. I'll call the police. My mother appeared, looking exhausted. Emma, don't be dramatic. These are family possessions with sentimental value. Sentimental? I laughed bitterly. Is that why Aunt Patricia is directing them to put price tags on everything? The movers looked uncomfortable, caught between family drama and a potentially illegal situation. Fine, I said, lowering my voice. Take the personal items that mean something to you, but the desk goes back inside. It contains Sauz's personal papers. My mother's eyes narrowed. What papers? His journals, correspondence, business documents. I held her gaze. Ennis, you are looking for something specific? The flash of something worry crossed her face before she composed herself. Don't be ridiculous. Fine. Leave the desk. After a tense hour of negotiation, we agreed they could take personal items and family photos, but nothing of significant financial value until the estate was properly settled. As they left, my mother lingered. Emma, she said quietly, you have no idea what you are involved in. Hesso's estate isn't just money. There are complications. Then explain them to me, I pleaded. She shook her head. I've tried to protect you your whole life. Maybe that was my mistake. She looked around the grand foyer with its marble floors and crystal chandelier. This house holds secrets. Be careful what you go looking for. After she left, I wandered through the eerily empty mansion where I'd spent so many happy weekends with Hires. In his study, I opened the leather journal from the package, starting to read his neat, precise handwriting. The 3rd of September 1985, made the hardest decision of my life today. If the family ever discovers what I've done, they'll never forgive me. But to protect Elizabeth, there was no other choice. Elizabeth, my mother. What had Hess needed to protect her from? I was deep into the journal when the doorbell rang. My cousin Tyler stood there, all charm in his tailored suit. Thought you might need some help navigating all this, he offered with a smile. Board meetings, it's overwhelming for someone without experience, and you are offering out of the goodness of your heart, I asked skeptically. Family is family despite everything. Besides, he glanced at his watch, as CFO of the East Coast Division, I have a vested interest in ensuring Thornhill Industries doesn't tank because its new majority shareholder doesn't know what she's doing. He had a point. I knew nothing about running a corporation. Fine, I relented. You can help with the business transition, but the estate is off limits. Fair enough. This smile didn't reach his eyes. First order of business. The board wants to meet you tomorrow. They're concerned about the leadership change. After Tyler left, I returned to the journal, skipping ahead to entries from the year I was born, the 12th of June, 1999. Held little Emma today. Looking at her is like seeing my Catherine again. Sand eyes, sand spirit. They all think Elizabeth is her mother, and it must stay that way. The truth would destroy everything we've built. One day, Emma may be the only one who can make things right. I dropped the journal as if it had burned me. What was he saying, Elizabeth? The woman I called mother my entire life wasn't my real mother? Then who was Catherine? And why would he is right that Elizabeth isn't my mother when all my life I believed she was? My phone rang, displaying an unfamiliar number. Is this Emma Thornhill? An elderly voice asked. When I answered, yes, who's this? My name is Harold Jenkins. I was your grandfather's personal assistant for 40 years. He paused. There are things you need to know, things not written in any journal, but not over the phone. Me tomorrow at the Willows Retiment Homeroom 315. Come alone. Your family can't know. Why should I trust you? I asked. Because, he replied gravely, I am the only person alive who knows what really happened to your mother, your real mother. After he hung up, I sat in Tosa's study, the weight of secrets pressing in from all sides. Death lied the window. I noticed a car parked across the street, someone clearly watching the house. As night fell, I realized I couldn't stay here alone, but where could I go when my own family might be my biggest threat? The Willows Retirement Home smelled of antiseptic and potpourri. In room 315, Harold Jenkins sat by the window, his thin frame nearly swallowed by a large armchair despite his age well into his 80s. His eyes were sharp and alert. You look just like her, he said as I entered. Catherine had that same determined walk. I remained standing. Who was Catherine, your grandfather's youngest daughter, his favorite? Harold gestured to the chair opposite him. She was brilliant, fiery, challenged Alexander on everything, unlike her sisters, who just wanted his approval. My mother Elizabeth never mentioned having a sister named Catherine. Harold's laugh was hollow. Of course she didn't. According to the official family history, Alexander Thornhill had 3 daughters, Elizabeth, Patricia, and Vivian, but there were 4. My head spun. Are you saying this Catherine was my real mother? That's impossible. There would be records, photos, not if someone went to great lengths to erase her existence. Harold handed me a yellowed envelope. He wanted you to have them when the time was right. Inside were photographs of a young woman with my eyes and smile standing beside a younger version of my grandfather. In one, she wore a graduation cap and gown from Harvard Law. Catherine was the smart one, Harold continued. Alexander was grooming her to take over the company someday. The others were jealous, especially Elizabeth, who'd always assumed she'd inherit everything as the oldest. What happened to her? Harold's expression darkened. The official story is that she died in a car accident while driving drunk, a scandal the family hushed up. You were just a baby, Elizabeth, who couldn't have children of her own, took you in. Alexander allowed it, thinking it would be safer for you. Safer from what? That's the question, isn't it? Harold leaned forward. The accident happened 2 weeks after Catherine threatened to expose something about the family business, something big enough that she feared for her life. She left evidence with her law school friend Margaret Chen. Finned Margaret. As I drove back to the mansion, my mind raced. If Elizabeth wasn't my mother, my entire life had been a lie. And what had Catherine discovered that was worth killing for? At a stoplight, I noticed the same car from last night following me. Instead of driving home, I made a sudden turn toward the police station. Back at the mansion, I found Tyler waiting on the porch. Where have you been? He demanded. The board meeting started an hour ago. I'd completely forgotten. Something came up. Something came up, he repeated incredulously. Emma, this isn't some graphic design deadline you can blow off. This is a multi-billion-dollar corporation. I know I am sorry. I'll reschedule. Tyler studied me with narrowed eyes. You look like you've seen a ghost. What's going on? For a moment, I considered confiding in him. Tyler had always been the most reasonable of my cousins, but Harold's warning echoed in my mind. Trust no one in the family, just overwhelmed, I said vaguely. Did you need something specific? He handed me a folder. The board needs these documents signed immediately. It's routine, just transferring Hess's accounts to your name. I flipped through the dense legal papers. I'll have my lawyer review these first. Your lawyer? Tyler laughed. Since when do you have a lawyer? Since I inherited a fortune that my entire family is trying to take from me, I replied coolly. His smile disappeared. We're not the enemy, Emma, but the longer you drag this out, the more the company suffers. After he left, I searched the mansion for any trace of Catherine in Hess's master bedroom. I found a loose floorboard under the rug. Beneath it was a small steel box containing more photos, letters, and a USB drive. One photo showed Catherine holding a newborn me. On the back was written, Emma Alexandra Thornhill, born May 10, 1999. My perfect daughter. I plugged the USB drive into my laptop. It contained financial records from Thornhill Interstates dating back 25 years, along with a video file labeled Insurance. I clicked play. My grandfather's face appeared on screen, looking grave. Emma, if you are watching this, then I am gone, and you found yourself thrust into a situation you never asked for. I am sorry. I thought I could protect you, but I realize now that the truth is your only real protection. Your mother, my Catherine, discovered that her sisters and the board had been funneling money from the company into offshore accounts, hundreds of millions. Over decades, when she threatened to expose them, she paid the ultimate price. His voice broke. I couldn't prove it was murder, though I've spent 25 years trying. The evidence is in these files. Be smarter than I was, Emma. Be careful, they're watching. As if on cue, I heard a floorboard creak downstairs. Shubman was in the house. I grabbed a USB drive and stuffed it into my pocket, heart pounding. The footsteps were getting closer, climbing the stairs. I looked around desperately for a weapon, settling on a heavy crystal paperweight from Hayes's desk. Emma, a familiar voice called. My shoulders sagged with relief as a petty appeared in the doorway. My cousin had always been kind to me, the only one who'd called to check on me after the funeral besides Tyler. You scared me to death, I said, setting down the paperweight. How did you get in? The back door was unlocked, she said, eyeing me curiously. Are you okay? You look terrified. I wasn't sure what to say. Eva had always been the family mediator, but even she might find it hard to believe that her mother and aunts could be involved in murder and fraud. Just jumpy, I guess. It's a big house to be alone in. Becca sat on the edge of the bed. That's actually why I came. Mom and the others are planning to contest the will formally. It's going to get ugly, Emma. They're saying horrible things that you might have even, and I saw you might have even. She trailed off. That I might have what killed him. I laughed bitterly. He died of pneumonia in a hospital surrounded by doctors. I know it's ridiculous. She touched my arm, but they're desperate. Mom's been going through old family albums looking for anything she can use against you. Alburns from when? I asked carefully. All of them? Even the ones from before you were born. She looked troubled. Emma, what's going on? I overheard Mom and Aunt Elizabeth talking about someone named Catherine. They sounded scared. So they did remember her. They'd just been lying all these years. Becca, if I tell you something, can you keep it between us, no matter what? She nodded solemnly. Of course. I took a deep breath. I don't think Elizabeth is my real mother. I think my mother was Catherine Haso's fourth daughter, the one no one talks about. Instead of shock, Ike's expression showed something else, resignation. You knew, I whispered. Not everything, she admitted. Just pieces I've overheard over the years. Mom thinks I am oblivious, but I notice things. She hesitated. There was a huge family fight when you were a baby. I remember because it was right after my 5th birthday. Examanen was screaming and Hessos was threatening to disown them all. small. What else do you remember? Just that Catherine's name became taboo after that? When I asked about her once, Mom slapped me so hard it left a mark. She touched her cheek at the memory. Emma, be careful. Whatever happened back then, they're terrified of it coming out. They're terrified of it coming out after Ak left. I searched Margaret Chen, Harvard Law online, and found her now a partner at a prestigious Boston firm. I called her office immediately. Miss Chen is unavailable, her assistant said. May I ask what this is regarding? Tell her it's about Catherine Thornhill. There was a long pause. One moment, please. Almost immediately, Margaret Chen came on the line. Who is this? Her voice was sharp, cautious. My name is Emma Thornhill. Catherine was my mother. Another pause. I need to verify that through me tomorrow, 3 p.m. at the Harvard Law Library, second floor, rare book section. Come alone that night. I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the files on the USB drive, detailed records of money being siphoned from company accounts into shell corporations owned by my aunts and several board members. The scheme had started small in the 1990s, but had grown to hundreds of millions by the time Catherine discovered it in 1999. At 2 a.m. I heard glass breaking downstairs. This time I was certain it wasn't Eka. I grabbed my phone and locked myself in the bathroom, calling 911. Someone's breaking into my house, I whispered. Police are on their way, the dispatcher assured me. Stay on the line. I heard footsteps methodically moving through the house, drawers opening and closing. They were searching for something. By the time police arrived, the intruder was gone. The only thing missing was Hessie's laptop, but they hadn't found the USB drive hidden in my pajama pocket. The police officer looked troubled. Miss Thornhill, this doesn't look like a typical break-in. They went straight for the study and master bedroom, ignoring valuable items in plain sight. They were looking for information, not valuables, I said quietly. What kind of information would be worth breaking in for? I thought about the USB drive burning a hole in my pocket. About Catherine. About my so-called family evidence, I replied. Evidence of murder. The Harvard Law Library was hushed and reverent, smelling of old books and polished wood. In the rare book section, a sharp-featured Asian woman in her 50s was waiting, her scrutinizing gaze reminding me of a prosecutor assessing a witness. You have her eyes, Margaret Chen said after studying me sans stubborn chin too. You knew my mother well. We were roommates for 3 years. She gestured to a private study room. In here, once the door closed, Margaret's professional demeanor softened. Catherine was my best friend, breathed idiot. Fearless, sometimes too fearless. She removed an envelope from her briefcase. She gave me this 26 years ago, made me promise to keep it hidden unless something happened to her. And something did happen, I said quietly. Margaret nodded grimly. A week after she gave me this, she died in that so-called accident. I tried to get the police to investigate, but the Thornhill influence runs deep. Your grandfather came to me afterward, desperate for information, but Catherine had been explicit. This was to be opened only by her child when they turned 25. I am only 24, close enough. Catherine would forgive me given the circumstances. She handed me the envelope. Your mother was investigating financial crimes at Thornhill Enterprises, but what she discovered went beyond money. Inside the envelope were more documents detailing the fraud, but also a handwritten letter addressed to my darling child, Biad. If you are reading this, I didn't survive to watch you grow up. I am sorry, know that I loved you more than my own life, and I thought I was doing the right thing by standing up for the truth. By now, you've probably been raised by Elizabeth believing she's your mother. She's not. I am *sin. The truth is complicated. Elizabeth couldn't have children, a private agony she never shared publicly. When I became pregnant with you, your father was my college boyfriend David, who died in a climbing accident before knowing about you. She and my sisters had already been stealing from the company for years, but when I discovered their scheme, Elizabeth offered me a deal. My silence for her help hiding my shameful unwed pregnancy from the public. *sin. I refused. I was going to expose everything. Then you were born and everything changed. They weren't just threatening me anymore. *sin. Whatever happens, no, this wasn't about money. The real secret is about Hesse. He's not who anyone thinks he is. The original Alexander Thornhill died in 1975. The man raising me and my sisters was Alexander's business partner who assumed his identity for reasons I am still uncovering. My sisters know this. It's how they've controlled him all these years. *sin. The proof is in a safe deposit box at First National Bank, number 1023. The key is *. The letter stopped abruptly. The rest of the page torn away. I looked up at Margaret, stunned. This can't be real. My grandfather wasn't my grandfather. Catherine was still piecing it together when she died. All I know is that she was terrified those last days, not for herself, for you. But why would Elizabeth want to raise me if she hated my mother? Margaret's expression darkened. Think about it. What better way to control your grandfather than by raising his beloved Catherine's child? You were leverage, Emma? As long as Elizabeth had you, she knew Alexander would never expose her crimes. My mind reeled. Had my entire childhood been a calculated plan to manipulate my grandfather? Had any of Elizabeth's maternal affection been real? Here's one more thing, Margaret added. Catherine mentioned someone else was involved, someone close to the family who helped orchestrate everything. She never told me who. I thought of Tyler's sudden helpfulness, of Ika's convenient appearance the night before the break-in. I need to find that safe deposit box, I said. The torn part of the letter mentioned a key. Without the key, you'd need a court order. Margaret looked grave. Be careful, Emma. These people have been covering their tracks for decades. Catherine thought she was being cautious too. As I left the library, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. The clicking. Final warning. Almost simultaneously, a call came in from Tyler. Emma, emergency board meeting tomorrow morning. Non-negotiable. They're voting on whether to suspend your voting rights pending a psychological evaluation. On what grounds? I demanded. You told the police we murdered Catherine Thornhill? Tyler's voice was incredulous. That record was sealed, but it's a small town. Word got back to the board. I felt sick. They were moving faster than I'd anticipated. I'll be there, I said, already forming a plan. That night, I returned to the mansion with a different mission, to find the missing piece of Catherine's letter. If the key wasn't with the letter, whoever he really was must have hidden it somewhere. I searched the study again, checking for more hidden compartments. In his desk drawer, I found an old photograph of him as a young man standing beside another man of similar age. On the back was written, Alex and me, 1970. I studied the image. The man identified as Alex had different features than the grandfather I knew. Subtle differences, but unmistakable once you were looking for them. A noise from downstairs interrupted my thoughts. Shaman was in the house again. This time I was prepared. I slipped into the hidden panic room Hayes had shown me years ago, watching through the security monitors as Elizabeth herself moved through the house, methodically searching drawers and shelves. Her phone rang and she answered on speaker. Did you find it? Aunt Patricia's voice asked. Not yet. It has to be here somewhere. Well, hurry up. If Emma connects with Margaret Chen before tomorrow's meeting, everything falls apart. 25 years of work down the drain. Don't you think I know that? Elizabeth Elizabeth snapped. I've protected this family's secrets my entire life. I am not about to stop now, and if she already knows, Elizabeth's face hardened into something unrecognizable. Then we implement the contingency plan. The poor girl, overcome with the stress of her inheritance, meeting the same tragic fate as her mother. I covered my mouth to stifle a gasp. They were openly discussing killing me, just as they'd killed Catherine. Through the monitor, I watched as Elizabeth pulled out a small framed photo of her holding me as a baby, the kind of picture that sits on a mother's nightstand. For a moment, her expression softened, almost regretful. Then she placed it face down in a drawer and continued searching. I'd always believed Elizabeth loved me in her own cold way. Now I wondered if anything in my life had been real. The board meeting was set for 9 a.m. at Thornhill Tower, the gleaming skyscraper downtown that served as company headquarters. I arrived at 7, letting myself in with Hyos's key card. His office on the top floor was untouched since his death. Ushering to the man everyone believed was Alexander Thornhill, I ran my fingers over the mahogany desk where he taught me chess as a child, trying to reconcile the grandfather I adored with the identity thief Margaret had described. On his bookshelf sat a worn copy of Great Expectations, my favorite novel that he'd read to me countless times. I pulled it out, remembering how he always said it was a story about becoming who you are meant to be, not who others expect. A small key fell from between its pages. My hands trembled as I picked it up. A safe deposit box key with 1023 engraved on it. Catherine's proof had been hiding in plain sight all along. I raced to First National Bank the moment it opened. I need to access box 1023, I told the manager, presenting the key and my ID. He checked the records. That box has been inactive for over 20 years, ma'am. I am aware it belonged to my mother. After verifying my identity, he led me to the vault. In-flight box 1023 was a sealed evidence bag containing a DNA test, newspaper clippings about the real Alexander Thornhill's disappearance at sea in 1975, and photographs documenting the gradual transformation of one man into another through subtle plastic surgeries. Most damning was a notarized confession from my grandfather, or rather from Richard Mercer, Alexander's business partner, explaining how he'd assumed Alexander's identity after his death to prevent the company's collapse, only to become trapped in the deception when Alexander's daughters discovered the truth years later. There was also a sealed envelope addressed to me in Hesso's handwriting, amplified with a letter written just months before his death. By my dearest Emma, *scene, by now you know the truth. I am not who I claimed to be. The real Alexander Thornhill died at sea in 1975, and I, Richard Mercer, took his place. What began as a temporary deception to save the company from bankruptcy became my life. I loved Alexander like a brother, and when he died, I promised to protect his legacy and his daughters. *sen, but I failed them, especially Catherine, your mother. When she discovered the financial crimes her sisters were committing, I couldn't stop what happened. Elizabeth and Patricia had been blackmailing me for years with the truth of my identity. I was a coward, Emma. I chose my stolen life over doing what was right, *sen, after Catherine's death. I insisted on raising you myself, but Elizabeth threatened to expose me and claim I was unfit unless she became your guardian. Again, I chose the coward's path. *sen, everything I've left to you is my attempt at atonement. The money means nothing. The truth is your real inheritance. Catherine left evidence with her friend Margaret Chen, and in this safe deposit box commoned with the files on the USB drive in my study, you have everything you need to bring them to justice. *sen, I've spent 25 years playing their game, building a case while appearing to comply. I couldn't save your mother, but I can give you the weapons to avenge her and take back what's rightfully yours. *sen, you are the daughter of my heart. If not my blood, I am so sorry I won't be there to see the extraordinary woman you've become. *sen, all my love. Grandpa *, I sat in the bank's private room, tears streaming down my face. The grandfather I loved had been living a lie, yet somehow that lie had become its own truth over time. His love for me had been real, even if his identity wasn't. When I finally arrived at the board meeting, I was 20 minutes late. My mother, no, Elizabeth looked relieved to see me, probably thinking I'd missed the vote. Nice of you to join us, Emma, said Walter Griffith, the board chairman. We were just discussing concerns about your recent behavior. I am sure you were, I replied calmly, taking my seat at the head of the table, Grandpa's old seat. Before we continue, I'd like to distribute some documents. I handed out copies of the evidence I'd collected, watching their faces shift from confusion to horror. What is this? Elizabeth demanded, her voice shrill. The truth, I said simply, about Richard Mercer and Alexander Thornhill, about the financial fraud you and the board have been committing for decades, and about what really happened to my mother, Catherine. The room erupted in chaos. Board members shouted denials. Others began making hurried phone calls. Elizabeth sat frozen, the color drained from her face. You can't prove any of this, Tyler said desperately. It's all circumstantial, actually. Hessler, should I say Richard, spent the last 25 years building an airtight case. I held up the USB drive. Every transaction, every shell company, every bribe is documented here. He was playing the long game, waiting for the right moment. And you think that moment is now? You are just a girl. You have no idea what you are doing. I know exactly what I am doing. I turned to Elizabeth, who hadn't spoken a word. You killed my mother. You stole my life. And for what? Money? Power? Elizabeth finally met my eyes. You understand nothing, she said coldly. We did what had to be done. Catherine was going to destroy everything our father, the real Alexander, built by exposing your crimes, by being naive, she snapped. This is business, Emma. Do you think any major corporation succeeds by following every petty rule? Catherine was going to bring down the entire company with her self-righteous moralizing. So you killed her, I said flatly. Your own sister? A shadow crossed Elizabeth's face. It wasn't supposed to happen that way. We just wanted to scare her, make her see reason. Things escalated. The boardroom had gone deathly silent. Did you ever love me? I asked quietly. Or was I just a pawn in your game with Heiss? As something like pain flickered in Elizabeth's eyes. You were both, she whispered. I couldn't have children, and there you were, this perfect baby who needed a mother. Part of me did love you, Emma, but you were also my insurance policy. As long as I had you, Richard would never expose me. Walter Griffith cleared his throat. This is all very dramatic, but what exactly do you want, Miss Thornhill? Money? Control of the company? I looked around the table at these people who had built their fortunes on lies and murder. I want justice for my mother. I want the truth to come out. You'll destroy the company, Elizabeth warned. Thursday.